from PRX.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the person I didn't realize that had so many bees in the bonnet, but not to put too fine a pine on it, but I think I did that out of order. But this podcast this podcast might not be giants, but it might be lulling and soothing because it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. And what do you say we keep the show going? Sleep With Me podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots, looking for a specific group of regular listeners, not new listeners, not occasional listeners, not people just going through a tough time, regular listeners whose Sleep With Me makes your life better. Have you been listening longer than 6 months? That means we got something special going on. You know, we got like an intermediate length relationship, right? And the show has become a part of your life. And we built Sleep With Me Plus with that in mind, right? Regular listeners, people who have maybe thinking about a longer term relationship. Sleep With Me is month to month. Sleep With Me Plus is month to month. So you could always cancel at any time. You could even do a free trial, kind of like, the first date. Try it out for 6 days. If it doesn't work, cancel it. But Sleep With Me Plus exists so the show can be here. So if you're still listening 6 months from now, 1 year from now, the podcast will still be around. So if you're able to, and you're like, yeah, I've been listening for 8 months. Yeah, this podcast does make my life better. I think I could support it for another 3 months. And then if I stop listening, I'll cancel. If that rings true to you, support the show at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. But I do count on you, if you're listening and hearing me right now, not to wait and say, well, let me see in 6 months. Because right now, we're trying to make sure we can make the show for the next 6 months and make sure it's out here in the public in a free ad-supported feed, listener-supported feed for everybody to benefit. But it's only when people that really value it support it back. So please consider it. sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Oh, Mystery Bard. A lot of people help out on this show. Who are they?
Posty poster song sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Hannah like banana. Leah does the transcripts.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. And don't forget, the most comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me is with sleep phones. You can get Sleep With Me merch, Sleep With Me branded sleep phones at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep-phones. And use Sleep With Me at checkout to get $5 off your order. The only way you can get the Sleep With Me merch editions is sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep-phones. Thanks, everybody. What do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Hey, you're up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep. Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, what else other than, thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, stuff, time, wind, rain, whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's something physical, material, emotional, something, whatever, like that's not in the, like they say, there used to be, when I grew up, there was 3 states, liquid, solid, and gas. And then they came up with plasma. And let me come back to that, though. But, like, whatever's going on that's keeping you awake, hopefully I'll remember that whole plasma thing. I didn't even think about taking that up as a cause, but now I will. But whatever's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off that. What I'm going to do, the safe place is, like, hopefully you feel welcome and invited. And you can come on in and check it out. No pressure. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice across the deep dark night. I'm going to use the lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, tangents and tangential distractions where I go on tangents about solids, liquids, and gas, sublimation. There won't be, they say, Scoots, do you use subliminal thoughts? I go, no, I just, my thoughts are sublimated. They're not sublime. But, when I try to go solidify them, I'm trying to, I've tried to freeze my thoughts. Now I'm trying to unfreeze them, but not sublimate them so I can, but that's why this podcast works. I say, well, let me put some of these thoughts into some concrete like ice. But when they come out, sometimes they're in a gaseous state. Where you say, Scoots, that looks more like a cloud than the thought or a vapor. And that's what the teachers, is this an essay or is this a vaporous piece of writing? And I'd say, I'm sorry, did you call me vapid? No. They said your writing is vaporous. Also, your handwriting's incomprehensible. And then I say, well, we have a conundrum then teach, because which one is it? Is it incomprehensible or is it vaporous? And sometimes my thoughts are more goo-like, but we'll get back to that. Let me get the new listeners set up. I'm glad you're here. This is a silly podcast to help distract you from something serious, which is whatever's keeping you awake, because I think you deserve a good night's sleep. Here's what to expect structurally if you're new. First few minutes of the show are business, so we can keep the show going. 630 plus archives free. So that's the first 4 to 6 minutes. Then there's an intro, which is 12 minutes or so, which we're in now, where I kind of ramble and try to introduce you. For new listeners, I try to win your trust, make you feel welcome. Regular listeners, some of them, this is like their warm-up. Some of them are falling asleep right now. Good night, sweeties. And that's not subliminal. It's just my sweet, sweet listeners, good night. Let me tuck you in there. Yeah, there you go. Yep, let me tuck that right in for you. That's nice. So some of the listeners I'm tucking in, some are sleeping, some are preparing for bed, some pets are coming running, others are looking quizzically, partners as well. So that's the intro. It's 12 minutes of pure nonsense from the International Podcast News, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18. Podcast intro news, the only news source for podcast intros. It's a newsletter I both write and subscribe to alone. And so, okay, that was like, that joke was also had an audience of one. Actually, like 40 parts of my brain. It was like, we really nailed that joke. And I was like, what? Anyway, so if you're new, it's the intro. Then there'll be about a 45 or 50 or 40 minute episode that'll carry us over to an hour. And tonight it'll be like a little bit of rambling, a little bit of talking, a little bit of meandering. I don't know what it'll be about yet, to be honest. It'll be about keeping you company, taking your mind out of stuff. Because here's the thing about this podcast. You don't really need to listen. You can kind of listen. You can barely listen. And you shouldn't feel any pressure to fall asleep. I'm going to be here to keep you company for about an hour. So you can take your time. You can relax. And ideally, your muscles just start to, well, what's the difference between goo and plasma, if you don't mind me asking? I guess I kind of picture them the same way. I think, like, plasma is just what scientists call goo, because I don't think goo is a scientific term. That's a good question, though. What's the difference between goo and goop? I would say goop is like a goo that has experienced some sublimation, right? Like it's or evaporation, if you want to use a term that actually I know the definition to. Wait, is sublimation when a gas goes to a solid? I think that is. So I've actually been misspeaking anyway. I guess my thoughts evaporate. They don't sublimate. Learned something there in just a few minutes. But like, when you first, and maybe it's just like as you get more like nuanced in your learning. Like when you're in kindergarten, you can only handle what you can see: solid, liquid, gas, and even a gas. Only like the hardcore scientists can show you a gas, like our science teachers. I mean, and at some point it became more of plasma, but I don't remember like ever studying much about it. And like, I don't know if that's what's in those Tesla balls. I think those are Tesla coils. But there's like the Tesla ball. I don't think that's its official title, but I always thought that was a plasma in there. But I don't think you would have had to reach far, because I think kids would have told you, like, we wouldn't even need to go to science class to know plasma, like goo, because it's like a solid and a liquid. Flows like a liquid, but it stays together. It maintains some of its shape. And you see that in a form like a blob or green slime, or other things kids interact with. So it's like we could have rewritten a thing without even going to science class and said, yeah, well, that's like, maybe that's why they came up with it. They just said, okay, moving on. To anybody that's going to object that there's only 3 states of matter. We've got, like, maybe the kid president could solve all this, and say, yeah, that, because they said, well, moving on. Okay, that's plasma, but we're going to cover solids, liquids, and gases in this, in this science class. But for any of you that want to think outside of that, it's a plasma. What about a gasish, see, here's one. What about fog? I don't mean to get is that a different state of matter? Like real pea soup fog or steam? And does it bother steam or pea soup fog? I don't know. There probably is. I guess when I shoot off the cuff like this, it's just, it's just to amuse you. It's not because I actually believe these things. No, but I guess I am curious. That's what's like having a great thing about living in a veil of ignorance and wearing one is you say, Jesus, well, that would probably be interesting to know but to ponder the answers to. And just picturing, picturing that stuff in my head is like, it's very sleepy. And the hope is with this podcast, I don't care which matter, we change into, but I want to take your thoughts and maybe evaporate them. We could do some sublimation if stuff feels too out there, bring it in, bring it down, what was that, plasmify any, muscles that might be tight and try to get you relaxed, maybe make you giggle or say, poor Scoots, I'm pretty good at this adult thing because I'm listening to Scoots, and maybe he needs to approach his kindergarten for a refund. And they'd say, well, I haven't mentioned the Kelvin scale at all because I don't know where I would fit that in. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying is I'm glad you're here, and I really hope this podcast can take your mind off. So the reason I make the show is because when I was in grammar school, I couldn't sleep, and I was lying there tossing and turning, and I never forgot what that felt like. Lying there, frustrated, and just wishing I could flip a switch and fall asleep. And I always wanted someone to come and just sit by my side and say, hey, it's too bad you can't fall asleep. It really seems tough. I'll just sit here with you and be at your side. maybe tell you a little story. I mean, sometimes that did happen. I mean, but, unrealistically as a kid, I could have used, full-time security blankets. But just someone really to say, wow, this seems hard. That seems tough. I don't know if I can help you fall asleep, but I can sit here rambling and tangents and trying to put you at ease and say, hey, I'm here for you to try to help the only way I know how, which is a long, winding intro and then a kind of silly story, because I know what it feels like and want to offer the relief I can. And that's why I make this show. And that's why I always say, I really appreciate you coming by. Thanks for stopping by. And I'm really hoping I really yearn to help you fall asleep. All right, let's keep the show going. Hey, it's Scoots. Before we get to the story here, I'm looking to get the attention of all night listeners, multiple episode a night listeners. So if you listen to 2 episodes a night, 3 episodes a night, 4 episodes a night, 5, 6, 7, 8 episodes a night, I really need you to listen to me and hear me right now and just ask you that question. Is that your listening style? And does that help you? Like, are you a regular listener? Have you been listening for a while? And is that valuable to you? To you, not to the other listeners, not to somebody else, but specifically to you. If you're listening and hearing me right now, you're probably the only person paying attention. A lot of other people tune me out, or they're so into their all-night listening, so used to it, that it makes it really hard to keep the show sustainable, because they have, for years, kind of gotten used to just tuning me out. And or they've decided, hey, it's somebody else's business. But I think you're different because you're still listening and hearing me right now. So if you're an all-night listener and this show makes your life better, does it make your life incredibly better? And is that valuable to you? So valuable that right now, not tomorrow, not next week, not one day, you'll empower me to keep making this show that benefits you and other all-night listeners, and support it. sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. That is designed with all-night listeners in mind. So when you get the bonus content set up, I suggest doing that tomorrow. You're going to find it so much smoother of a listen anyway. But please consider supporting the show because you're one of the 2 big groups of super listeners that without your support, the show really, the free version of the podcast can't exist without just getting 1 out of 10 all-night listeners to support the show. The show will be go on and on and on and on. Well, if not 1 out of 10 listeners support it, that's 0 out of 10, right? You could be that 1 out of 10 people. I think it's 1 out of 100. No, 1 out of 10. We could use 1 out of 10. We could use you, right? So anyway, think about supporting the show, or don't think about it, I guess. You can always cancel during your free trial or cancel as soon as you stop listening all night long. But I'm not kidding with these messages for the all-night listeners and people who fall asleep fast. If it turns out that most of those people don't want to support the show, or the show is so effective that most all-night listeners and fall asleep fasters don't hear me, that's like the most mind-boggling thing. The show could cease to exist because it's so effective and to getting through to the people that benefit the most from the show. But I think I'm keeping trying. That's why I'm making these messages, and I'm a little bit hyper, because I know this podcast has positive impact. It has changed lives, and I know I can't do it without your support. Thanks. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sleep With Me, the podcast to put you to sleep. And I was going to check Twitter to see what was trending, but I had actually a story. Like we have an occasional, these aren't series, but they're occasional episodes, related to other hobbies other than I listen to Knox. I have another hobby, and it used to be 1 hobby. Now it's 2. And then I decided to combine them, which was pitching Tim Curry and mostly Tim Curry's representatives. I'd really want to share a vision or share time with Tim Curry. In reality, I love Tim Curry, and I don't know. Some people might say, well, geez, and I say, yeah, well, Tim Curry does have gatekeepers to keep me out. It's just like pitching. So it's pitching Tim Curry. And then at some point, when I thought I had knocked it out of the park with the movie, like any Tim Curry involvement, like along with the proper story and stuff, it was called, well, I don't remember what the name of the movie was called, but it was like the premise was that Tim Curry was an organist at a church, and like they were serving like an underserved community, and the denomination of the church is flexible, and that either the church was going to get a new chandelier or they had a chandelier, and that one day the chandelier was gone because there was other, like, it was like about, and that Tim Curry was part of this camp that maybe took the chandelier and sold it and gave the money away. So it wasn't a totally formed idea. But that was one project I pitched Tim Curry on. I know there was, then there was the Punch and Judy live action movie. That may have been my first pitch in the, I forget. I think I even had a title for that one. It was an episode. It'll be like, you may be able to find it. I think there was also like, oh no, that was Bernie the Butterfly was mad about Owen and Mazee. Maybe I could pitch Tim. Maybe that's another project, like an Owen and Mazee related project. But that's like pretty 2014. Then I was pitching Rick Moranis because they said, you know who I miss also, and who I haven't worn out my welcome with is Rick Moranis. And I think I pitched Rick Moranis on Adventures in Babysitting 2. Unfortunately, that was right about the time Adventures in Babysitting 2 came back out that I didn't know about. And while that didn't work, while that didn't go good, I did, I think Rick Moranis maybe, still does comedy, privately, and, I provide him with a character that he can do, because he's done it for my pleasure. So he imitates Drew, not Scooter. So he does, I think I brought some joy into his life because he puts on, for his family, he puts on little shows. And then when I'm over there, and you could be saying, Scoots, is any of this real? Or is this like the Knox, or is this even and I'd say, well, this is a bedtime story podcast. So just settle in because I have a new pitch for both. I was figuring, so usually I tell you these things after so that they can't prepare. Because usually, especially when you have multiple layers of teams you have to get through, because even Rick's team, they'll call my phone when I'm they'll say, you're not at Mr. Moranis' house, are you? And I say, well, I knocked. And they say, well, Rick gave me a key. And they say, little Rick, not big. And I say, okay, anyway, no, I knocked. I rang the doorbell and I was invited in. I'm an invited guest. And then they just sigh, and then they say, Rick's doing his Drew scooter routine. It can be a delicate situation. And I don't do any of this ever. This is only the kind of stuff that makes up sleep podcasts. But I've been sitting on this idea for a while. And maybe 6 months ago, I returned to it, fantasizing about could this idea ever come to fruition? And then I said, what about, I was like, who would I pitch this idea to? And could it be a podcast? And then I was thinking about pitching the Mystery Bard about it. And, then my kind of focus is usually consumed by sleep with me. And then I thought, well, what if Tim Curry and Rick Moranis were in this musical as the leads? Looking back, I want to embrace where they are now, the actors, and write for that. Especially this is what I tell their team. And I think secretly their team they really like me. I mean, come on. They want what's best for their clients. I'm not trying to I think they just get frustrated because they don't think my ideas are ever going to come to much fruition, which is understandable. But so I had this idea, which I'll tell you about because I, just had delivered the pitch recently. But let me talk about one other theory I have, which, there's the idea of the collective unconscious, right? And there's a kind of an idea of this collective story unconscious where, other people, there's archetypal stories and other people have ideas and they're kind of similar. But I think if you go even deeper into the collective unconscious, there's a collective unconscious of musicals. There's probably a musical collective unconscious as well. And of things that people think should be a musical. Like my claim to fame is that, the Goonies musical, which we still haven't seen yet because of the rights complications. But I pitched that Goonies musical to my brother, and then he was like, no, I thought of that idea. And then I said, don't tell anybody about the Goonies musical. That's how I'm going to pay for retirement. But I don't think that's like that creative an idea, to be honest, because it's like kind of a musical that writes itself. I mean, you do have to get a songsmith in there. Yeah, but at least the book, it wouldn't be easy. But it does seem like something that would make a perfect musical. Now, maybe we're in this, I don't know, maybe we've passed a peak musical for adaptations. Though there does seem to be plenty of creative work going on there. So that was an idea. And this is a musical. And I would posit to say that this idea probably has been tried before. And so this is how the pitch started. So let me see how much backstory I have to give on how I got through. I mean, what I did start doing was showing up at Rick Moranis's with DVDs. And this is a trick. If it's a little trick, but it's not super tricky. Is if you actually get access, you got to make yourself indispensable, right? And I'm not good at too many things, but I am good at putting things together, and I don't know anything about technology, but I'm good at testing it and hooking stuff up. I can hook up wires like nobody's business. So I did say to Rick multiple times, you need somebody to put batteries in stuff. Give me a call, buddy. And he would laugh. He'd say, I think I got that covered, Drew. And I'd say, well, what about how do you I'm good at Rick, I'm good at this stuff. How do you consume your television? And so we would talk about that, and then I'd say, well, here's your streaming options, but here's what you can get in, here's the resolutions, and here's the sound, because if you got a nice setup, then you might not be getting full surround sound. So we were testing out solutions, for Moranis Movie Central. And I said, okay, Rick, let's do some tests to compare, using a Blu-ray to a DVD to a streaming movie. And I started doing a little seed planning. So every time I'd say, okay, let's watch Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then we watched Clue. Then around Halloween, we watched The Worst Witch, Clue, Annie. She's trying to sneak in every Tim Curry movie I possibly could. And Rick didn't catch on really right away. He just said, geez, what do you got? You're a Tim Curry fan. One time he said in passing. But they're all the perfect movies to set on. You say, okay, just let me know how the resolution is. You could probably picture this, picture Rick Moranis on the couch, and there I am working on the TV. And what I'd do is I'd start the movie, and we'd be doing a test, so Blu-ray or whatever, or a HD purchase, from iTunes that you download versus a stream, whatever. We were testing different stuff, and I had a little sheet for him. That was handwritten, where I'd say picture quality, sound quality, but you get the movie started. Then you still pretend like you're working on something. Always look busy. If you want to be indispensable, always look busy too. So you just get behind the TV, you put your head behind the TV, you get this quizzical look on your face. I do a lot of wire pinching, where you're just pinching a wire like it was pasta or something, and then looking at it, and then putting your head, behind the TV, then back, and then, scratching your chin. I'm really good at looking confused and, I'm puzzling behind the television. And then I'd say, okay, at some point, like, but the movie would have already started. And then once the movie starts, Rick would be like, okay, let me just watch. I forgot how good this movie was. And he would be in like, kind of like, and then I try to sit up next to him on the couch. And he'd say, well, what about at multi-rooms, what about getting the music in the hallway? You were talking about making my house into a theme park with the ambient. I say, okay, Rick, I'll get right on that. But and then I'd pretend I was caught up in the movie too. And I usually, like, I have learned to just leave way early. So I'd be like, all right, I guess I'll fix that hall thing later when I figure that out, but I got to get out of here. And he would just kind of wave me off. So I got Rick, like, unfortunately I didn't have that kind of unfettered access to Tim Curry. Like, I don't know if it'd be, like, no offense to Rick, but I could probably split my time between both of them. But then, like Rick was, like, he would start cracking jokes from the movies that no one, like some of the movies, that haven't been seen. And then, I'm a big Annie fan, so I would, sing some Annie songs. And I had some catchy tunes, and even Rick said Worst Witch wasn't that bad, wasn't half bad. And I said, yeah, especially the part with Tim Curry, and like you said, though, that was a highlight for sure. And I said, man, I wonder what it'll be like to work with Tim Curry. And Rick said, I've wondered that my whole life. And I said, huh, like. Because I got this idea. And Rick said, what, fix the audio in my hallway? And I said, yeah, come on, like, because I need somebody to hold the ladder. But believe me, then you get up in the ceiling speakers, you got somebody holding a ladder for you. Ideally, you have their full attention. And then I enacted stage 2, which I'm going to I'll try to shroud it in mystery. But I started, like, I said, okay, Rick, I think I'm hooked up to your Bluetooth, and I pretended like I was working on the speakers. I really had a Bluetooth speaker in my pocket, but I was up there in the ceiling speakers. Again, mostly pitching wires and looking at stuff, and then, turning a screw like a quarter of an inch. And then I was playing, so I'd be like, okay, let me run another test. And I was playing music, some 80s music, from a particular group or duo. They can't help but be catchy, a little maybe sometimes too earwormy. And what I would do is I'd stop the songs early, and then Mr. Moranis, Rick, would say, no, okay, keep that going. Like, I love that song. Or he'd say, oh, remember that SNL where they did the thing with Obama and McCain? And I said, oh, yeah, totally. Like, I love that. And so that was stage 2. I never got those speakers working. What I did do is I just put like a Bluetooth speaker up in there behind the ceiling speakers. And then I just got to go over there and charge it like once or twice a week. So I had planted 2 seeds, the Curry seed and then the musical seed. And then I had to take it one step further, which was like, I don't know if this is vanity or truth. I guess it's a little bit of both, but Rick has a really nice voice. And he would be singing along with, like a different thing, like the different songs. And I said, man, like, I'd say you really nailed it. Or we'd be, very rarely did this happen, but we'd be singing like kind of, whatever, I don't know what that's called when you sing at the same time. I guess singing at the same time. But we'd be singing along. I guess it's singing along to these songs or songs from Annie. And, or the worst big song from The Worst Witch. I can't remember the lyrics now. And I'd say, wow, I'd say, you got a great set of pipes on you, Moranis. You would just laugh at that. That's pretty much it. Like, I was like, okay, I could retire now. If I made Rick Moranis laugh and blush, I've lived a full life. And that's where I enacted phase 4, which was where I said, oh, geez, like, looking back on things, I said, you've really lived you lived a full life. And you say stuff like, wow, you got a lot to be proud of. You're really leaving, two different kinds of legacies. There's three different kinds behind Mr. Moranis. That's where I tried to picture myself as like a paperboy kid or a shoe shine kid. I'd say, wow, Mr. Moranis. And then then I said, okay, I said, looking back, and I say, how come there's not more stories about looking back, where the leads are the ones looking back, but not like in the past, I said, but showing people in the real stage they are in their life, their real age, where and Rick said, are you going to say ageism? And I said, well, not quite. I said, but I don't know, like accomplished actors or singers, pop. What's power pop, Rick? Do you know? And he didn't know. We spent a lot of time just making sounds, like is it a song that does this, and that was kind of fun. So if you're bored ever, you just try to make sound effects to describe, is that power pop or not? Is that just pop? Because then you can add in stuff like synth pop, Canadian pop. Those were the two I thought of. Canadian pop kind of flopped because I thought that would crack him up. But he was like, huh? And then he finally said, listen, he said, have a seat. And not a comfortable seat. He had me sit at the breakfast bar or whatever, the island, the kitchen island on the tall chairs. And when people ask you to have a seat, I think where they ask you to have a seat, sometimes, I don't know if McClone would say the medium is the message in this case, but I think it might be, because if they have you sit on a couch or in a power situation, like they're behind a desk and you're in front of the desk, or you're sitting at a breakfast bar or whatever, a kitchen island, and the other person is on the other side of the island on their elbows standing. That one I didn't have a precedent to go on. I said, okay. And then part of me is still giddy, saying, I'm sitting at Rick Moranis' breakfast bar, Yeah, look who's laughing now. I was sweaty from mowing the lawn. But that was just because I said, well, I got to lay some cable later for those outdoor speakers. And that my cover was kind of blown because that was the first thing Rick laughed and said, I'm familiar with Bluetooth technology. And I said, well, those other speakers, they work on their own. And he said, yeah, I know. He goes, I appreciate you coming around here. And he goes, I don't know how to say this. And I said, oh, great. Rick's breaking up with me. Here comes here comes another one. But, he kind of made some long, drawn-out metaphor about adopting pets, which, didn't work out because I said, is he trying to compare me to a lost dog? Which he was, almost directly. And, the taking in of a lost dog. But then he said, he goes, I can tell something's been on your mind. And he goes, I really know. He goes, I know you're not here just to, pretend to work and, kind of be useful. And he goes, and I could hire someone to do all that. He goes, what's on your mind? He goes, remember you used to pitch me ideas and now, he goes, our relationship changed in some way. And he goes, I feel like you've been dancing around instead of, he goes, I thought this was about pitching Rick Moranis. He goes, it's been a year plus since you pitched me anything. And I said, is that really why you brought me into your life, to pitch you ideas? And he said, well, no, you came into my life. He goes, kind of, worked. And I said, okay, let's stay away from any loaded words there. I said, like, I didn't really sidle you. I guess I kind of like a dog. I said, hey, can I create some? And then I said, oh, yeah, like a dog. I said, create some space in your life for me. And I said, I guess I got the boundaries mixed up because I was afraid that actually, I didn't have any good ideas, to be honest with you, Mr. Moranis, until now. So I guess I've just been gestating on what will be next. That's why I haven't pitched you anything. I mean, maybe part of me felt like there was a power dynamic and that you would become an authority figure, and I was doing some dancing around, but I also didn't have any good ideas to pitch you. But I guess that is no longer the case because I do now have an idea. I think I have an idea for you and Tim Curry. And he said, really? He goes, I've been talking, like he was talking, this is like private. So maybe he was talking to Tim Curry's people or Tim Curry. I don't know. You know, even though this is all, this is all just, you know, like a dream play in fantasies of mine. You still have to respect that, but whatever, their people had been talking. And Rick said, like, I went over there, like, he goes, yeah, we spent a little time together. And he goes, I figured, he goes, you know, you're kind of transparent. And I said, what do you mean? I'm not crafty? And he said, no, not at all. And he said, oh, okay, well, at least I got a lot of work done around your house. He goes, kind of. He goes, you're almost an actor. And I said, I guess not a very good one. And then he said, do you feel like you're talking in an after-school special? And I said, geez, Miss Moranis, thanks for the advice. I'm going to keep on dreaming. And he said, okay, tell me what your idea is. I said, well, he said, maybe I'm better off telling, even better off pitching you and Tim Curry at the same time. And he said, okay, why don't you go for it then? And he said, like, then he, you know, speakerphoned it and everything. And, you know, then we set another appointment. He said, can't you tell me? I said, I can't tell you, Mr. Moranis. I cannot give you the idea ahead of time. It'll have more oomph if I give it all at once. And so then we set a time aside, and we had to do this Google thing where you say yes and that whole 9 yards. And then I said, I can't do I said, can I be at your place when we do the conference calling? Because I said, I can't do that. I don't like the dialing in, and you got to put a PIN number in, and then it says, it makes that ba-boom, and then it's like you're supposed to say your name. Like some places record your name and introduce you. Some places you just get dropped right in the room, and you got to introduce yourself. Then there's a lot of talking over, and he said, don't worry, just come over. So then I went over to Rick Moranis, you know, a couple days went by, and those were, and he kept kind of saying, come on, tell me what it's about. And he said, I think I know. And I said, well, that's great, because like I said, you're not going to know because it's going to be so mind-blowing. Also, there's major rights issue, like IP rights. And then he said, I already booked this meeting. And I said, well, don't worry about it. That's what creativity's for. So then I headed over there, and we got on the speakerphone, and, you know, there was the niceties, and because, it actually felt like I guess I had an ally. I was a little bit more comfortable, until, I was like, okay, this idea is, it's going to take some buy-in, but, and I said that, I said, okay, and I said, thank you, Mr., thanks everybody for your time. And I realized this is like an unprecedented idea, bringing both of you together. And I want to consider the places you both are in your lives currently, and, with a little distance. And I do see this as an opportunity for something we could do small scale experimentally, or, that you could both be removed and on just the production side of it. And I said, this is an idea I haven't told my brother Carl about, so it's not out there in the world, but there probably is, one or two entities may be pursuing this idea realistically, or maybe one that has actual, I said, well, let's not let that stop us. But my vision is to have a look at a musical with it. And there's a couple options, obviously, as we start to look at this idea and really flesh it out down the road as a team, like as a duo with me. So trio. And I waited to pause just to see if there'd be any snickering or anything. But everybody was I said, oh boy, I was on a roll. But I guess I'm particularly enamored, and I think entertainment has reached a time where it can embrace a musical with the leads being of an age where they're looking back at a long, long successful career in the journey they went on together. Now, could that be with flashbacks through other characters of varying ages, or could the leads be the ones acting out those? I think that's where I say, well, could we experiment with this and workshop it? Also, I've never workshopped anything, so I'm not even sure what that means. But I have tested out ideas. And then finally, some Yahoo in a suit said, okay, can we get and I heard Tim Curry clear his throat, and I don't think he was clearing it at me. So I said, okay, well, I'll get to the idea. But then I got a little, and then Rick said, just go ahead. And I said, well, basically, I'm here pitching both of you. It's a Hall & Oates the musical. And someone said, Hall & Oates the musical. And there's a couple of people, this is I don't know how many people are on the call in the age ranges. But, they said, what do you mean Hall & Oates the musical? I said, a musical, that that goes across the career and the story of Hall & Oates, with Daryl Hall and John Oates, particularly. And they said, wow. So, with their songs, I said, I said, probably not with their songs, because, if someone has the rights to their songs, they could just do the musical without us. And then they said, and I said, okay, well, just hear me out. We could get the songs one day. But I said, imagine a musical about Hall & Oates without Hall & Oates songs. And someone said, that would be experimental indeed. And then I said, imagine a musical about Hall & Oates with Hall & Oates songs. That's so good, we get to Hall & Oates songs. And then someone said something, imagine, sounds imagine, and I said, okay. Well, just picture this, if you can, a dark stage that lights up on our two leads. For now, Mr. Curry and Mr. Moranis. This dark, empty stage, maybe a misty thing. Maybe it's even post big farm for one of them. Or maybe it's, at a shared acquaintances of theirs that plays a, an important role in the story. And it's a coming together, what did I say? After an estrangement, like a post estrangement. And there they are, breaking the ice again. Doing that. And then we do a song like the opening number. I've only worked on parts of the Goonies musical. So, I can do the book side maybe, and we can workshop. I said, we'll figure it all out. But I said, I imagine the opening number or the first big song. Maybe we start with I don't know what it's called when it's like a mini song of them greeting each other. And, talking about third acts and last acts. But then there's some sort of moment that brings them back to when they first met. And then we go and we transition from the current scene to the Battle of the Bands. And in Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania. We could just do it straight Philly, since it's kind of like, I think that's where they first met, was outside of Philly. And there's a battle of the bands. So we could have different bands, and then we could have each, they were both at this battle of bands separately with their different bands. And maybe if we hire someone really good, we could have two different twists in two different genres of a twist on the same song. But I think I want it to be like an aloofness, and maybe we get kind of an idea of whatever character traits we want to highlight through the whole musical, which I think is like going to be, I see the musical as kind of like one about romantic triangulation or whatever you call that. But so then we have the Battle of the Bands. Then the Battle of the Bands gets broken up because there's like a little bit of chaos during the Battle of the Bands. And Hall and Oates just happen to bail at the same time. And they end up taking the freight elevator together alone. So then that's another song. Maybe a callback to the first song with the Battle of the Bands, like an interlude type thingamajig. I don't know. Again, I don't know the terms. And then they're on the elevator, and they share a song with hey, don't I know you from somewhere? Don't I know you? Oh, Battle of Bands. What band are you in? And then they're both they taking classes at the same place. And then that song can be a montage. And actually the elevator, like the freight elevator, could be a montage if we want, where it just goes to three different rooms, when the roommates, and then they're starting to play together, and then they're starting to get good, but not good enough. And maybe this is where the first act kind of closes with a little bit of whatever tension, whatever the interpersonal tension is that we just introduced in with their estrangement, it comes up again. Maybe a dreamer. Again, if we have rights to the song, I guess it would be a little bit easier, but we could really combine their songs for the songs. But then at the end of the first act, are we going to go for it or not? And Oates decides to go to Europe, and all seems lost. But I guess it doesn't, because it's, only the first act of the musical. But then they come back together very quickly. And I guess this is maybe where we need to fictionalize a little bit, like when Oates is coming back, Hall is maybe in a relationship, and then they start working together again, and they're still having these ups and downs, but they're kind of feeling it, and they're sowing their oats, to pardon the pun. Well, I guess they aren't, they're exploring, they're trying to explore their sound, and they're meeting all these people, but they just can't get a hit. And there could be a song like Can't Get a Hit. And it also is Hall's personal life is going along with that. So then it goes from this where he loses, she's gone. And that ends up being the thing that ends up being their hit after she, so he can't get a hit. Maybe he breaks up, maybe Oates has a hand in it, too. And then we introduce Sarah into the mix after the hit or before the hit. And that becomes this thing that's just Sarah's smile, the song, but also the character. It kind of starts to reshape Hall and create tension with Oates, but that tension somehow helps drive these. It starts driving the tension between the three of them helps the music. And then they start to, then they just start to go wild. And they keep going up and up and up and up. But it only gets so high, and then it kind of crashes. And then I think, again, this would be kind of fictionalizing it, but then Sarah's, a sister gets introduced as another songwriter, which kind of confuses things even further. But in some sense, it relieves the tension by making it a square instead of a triangle. And it adds extra element, and maybe she's like this ally character, which leads to their next hit. And again, like I said, this has got to be workshop. So there's like, but there is a story here, and a musical story that they can be told. I guess it could be told with their songs, but I think it would be better. Like, don't you think it would be better without their songs? And then there was total dead silence on the other end. And I said, and then, you build, then, it doesn't end on a, I said, I don't know. I don't have the ending nailed down quite yet. But I said that would be the movie, the Hall & Oates, or musical, Hall & Oates musical. And again, more silence. And Rick kind of looked at me. He didn't, when someone looks at you and you can't tell if they feel sorry for you or they believe in you or they're worried for you. I get that look a lot. But then coming from the other end, which I'm pretty sure was Tim Curry's, he said, well, who's Hall and who's Oates? And I said, I think we all know the answer to that. Hardy har har. And then there's some clarifying questions were asked by the talent. No offense to the team, but they said a Hall & Oates musical without any Hall & Oates songs. And they said, how are you going to call it Hall & Oates? And I said, I got a hall in my house, and I got a freaking box of oats. No one tells me I can't call it those things. But he said, anyway, so it's a Hall & Oates looking back at their years together, looking back at their story in the journey they took in a song, I said, but I think maybe the juice of the story is that they are where they are now, instead of and that we work that in somehow, and maybe that they need to become roommates again. It could be as simple as that, or that they want to, or that they want to and don't want to, or need to, and maybe even the tension of looking back at what's past. I think, or it could just be a feel good. I mean, if we get the rights to the song, forget everything I said, except for some of the plot points that we could develop. I said, but I think even adding this, with their songs, would make it a little bit more real, instead of just celebrating their youth, they're savoring how their youth is letting them celebrate who they are today, or informing their choices or their most recent choices. I don't know, that maybe seems a little muddled, but that we could include that in there. And again, I don't know, when I think about this project, even if no offense, and hopefully they're not tapping this, even if I had Hall & Oates, I would think I would choose the two of you over that. And someone said, well, isn't that because it's a gimmicky? I said, no, not at all. I think it's in a way to kind of separate your mind from the fact that you're it's neither a tribute band nor a reunion tour. That maybe it creates some dissonance where we're able to invest in the story of Hall & Oates more than the public figures of Hall & Oates. And then one of the people in khakis or something said, that almost is so confusing, it almost makes sense. And I said, it does, because I think the success of this, it could go two ways. You get the rights to the song and you just do a straightforward way. But I said, none of us would be involved in that project, right? Let's be realistic. They wouldn't need any of us. And even if they had roles for our two heroes here, they'd be like an agent and an advisor, or a positive, influence, a mentor, and someone nefarious or something. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking at the beauty of their story is like, it has the elements of, fairy tale elements. It has buddy elements. It has romantic tension elements. It has ups and downs. And it has the soul that creates the songs. So I don't know. And I think, that we could again, I realize when I'm coming from a project as mind-blowing as Goonies the musical, which is so easy to pitch, the idea of pitching Hall & Oates the musical starring Tim Curry and Rick Moranis, okay, no one decided that, so that's good. Tim Curry and Rick Moranis is starring in Hall & Oates the musical, or featuring, however we do it, is something different, something unexpected. But again, it could be an idea that just, that came out of nowhere. That's, not substantive, and I can respect that. But, I think the two of you, maybe it could be something you can invest in, to really feel that role and a connection to it, metaphorical connection or direct connection. And looking back at then and seeing now and saying, hey, who we are now is important. And this was the journey we went on. And maybe it's as simple as breaking the wall with maybe the first act is the audience, the wall is broken. I don't know. I never saw, when Mindy Kaling, and one of her writing partners and performing partners, they did a Matt Damon and Ben Affleck show. And I think that's how they broke in. And maybe it was a Good Will Hunting play or a musical or something, or it was just a Matt and Ben show. I didn't get to see that, but I can almost see it anyway in that outside of the box. It seems fun. And I guess this one I'm kind of not pitching in the funnest way, just because I was like, okay, I could see your objections that this idea is way off the wall. But I think it also gives you a chance, and maybe we do it in London, not Broadway. I don't know what the difference is. Or maybe we do it even somewhere else. Maybe we do it out at the Moranis pool, and we put on a show. But I don't know. I guess I believe in the love, the love the audience feels for the topic, for the story, for the two of you, and that there's a connection everyone has to change into. Time becoming me or whatever we could do Simon and Garfunkel, but I tend to say that, Hall & Oates lends itself more to a musical. But again, I just appreciate your time hearing this out. And, it's fine if you want to draw, that's fine. This could be the end of all of our business, or near business relationships. But I just appreciate you both, even though like Mr. Curry, I appreciate your patience and your team. Thank you very much. And, Rick and everybody have been great. Putting up with me is an understatement. But just think of the options and imagine if we did do as an experiment, and we do it a light version, or a super, third, a fourth wall thing where it's clear we don't have the rights to music and we're celebrating that, on a small scale. And even if you want to be silent partners or just producers, that we cast it in the same manner of looking back and I mean, it could even have I think this would be too much and again, muddle it, but like that they've lost the rights to their songs and, they're performing together for the first time at some like retirement village or something. And, I don't know, but the idea that, if we did it like with half the songs of a regular musical, so we're just focusing on the big numbers, and then saying, well, if we have 7, then we could have 20 when we slide in the Hall & Oates songs. If we don't get to Hall & Oates songs, this is just a basic thing. But if people start to like it, say, okay, let's build this out. Let's hire, you could hire somebody that knows what they're doing. And, I could advise them and, I could still help, or I could be hands off. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm sure that you have the people that could make that happen. But yeah, just imagine, the humor. I mean, I guess the humor would be funny the first 2 times. If it was like, okay, here's where we would have, what I want. But, I don't know. We could maybe not, but I mean, I'll tell you what, if you're waiting for financing based on 80s nostalgia, you don't want to wait too much longer. Yeah, because my sense is, that it's going to be good for another 12 to 18 months. And then the stuff that got financed that's not good will be out. And this musical, thank you, Khaki Pants, for that comment. So, yeah, I guess that's it. I appreciate you both. And I'm glad I got to pitch you. And also put all these pets here to sleep at the Moranis household. So, but yeah, that's it. Hall & Oates, the musical starring Moranis and Curry and Moranis, and Hall & Oates, the musical. It's an idea that I said there's no one else on the planet. Like you'd say, well, John Lithgow wants to work with you, Scoots, on that. I'd say, well, I could. What if I make another musical for John Lithgow? But this one, I think I have to stick with, So anyway, thank you all, and thanks, Rick. I'm going to get out of here. And so that was how I left the meeting, and I'm still waiting. And again, I think this is one of those ideas that's probably, they probably all want to do it. But again, when you look at the collective unconscious of musicals, there could be a Hall & Oates musical that's already like 3/4 of the way produced, and it just hasn't been announced yet. So then they said, well, Tim and Rick were all about it. This actually, someone did call me. But this was one of my friends. They said they were all about it. But, with coming to, the famous Las Vegas hotel in 2019 is Hall & Oates the musical starring Hall & Oates. And they said, okay, well, maybe it could be off Broadway, and someone could do it, or I'll do it. Maybe I'll do Hall & Oates the musical, me and the Mystery Bard or something, if I could get around to it. Or just as my live show. So anyway, that's it, everybody, and thanks so much for listening. And pending many hurdles of, and then those hurdles, maybe we'll see that come to fruition. Good night. All right, everybody, Scoots here. It's time to talk about tonight's sponsor, Helix. And I don't know how long you've been listening to Sleep With Me, but I've probably been sleeping in my Helix for as long as you've been listening, but more than likely even longer than you've been listening. And I love my Helix because it's made for me and how I sleep, my feel preferences, my needs. I know because here's the thing, you just take a quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep. That's helixsleep.com/sleep. And you answer a few questions. You get matched with the mattress that's right for you, not the mattress that's right for me. Helix has tons of different mattress models to choose from, but I'm getting ready to move. I love my Helix so much. I'm kind of going back and forth on, should I just buy a new Helix when I move, or should I move my Helix? Should I do both? The issue probably is that my move's going to be spread out because of some other stuff I have going on. on. But, yeah, these are a few of the things that I say, man, I need this Helix in my life. Now, think about that fact. I love my mattresses so much. I'm thinking about all my options. So think about the mattress you're in. Do you love it so much you would pay more than, to pay to move it, which pretty much equals the cost of buying it? Or would you, you say, well, I don't want to be without my Helix for 2 weeks. Even if my Helix is just on my bedroom floor, I don't want to be without it. Like, is that the relationship you have with your mattress? Like, you want it at your side? You want it there? No matter what? Because if it's not the case, it's time for you to think about getting a new bed and take that Helix quiz and see what your options are. Helix has you and your sleep needs in mind. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep for 27% off site-wide during their 4th of July sale happening now. This offer is exclusive for listeners of Sleep With Me. That's helixsleep.com/sleep for this exclusive 4th of July sale offer. 27% off site-wide. helixsleep.com/sleep. Thanks, everybody. Good night.